Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were the first mainline Pokemon games not developed by Game Freak. They were also the first remakes designed to be faithful as opposed to the others in the series. For example, Fire Red and Leaf Green looked like Gen 3, Heart Gold and Soul Silver looked like Gen 4, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire looked like Gen 6. Leading up to the reveal of BDSP, most people assumed Sinnoh remakes would look similar to Sword and Shield. Fan reception to this reveal was overwhelmingly negative, and I can't say I blame them. The Pokemon community often gets a bad rep for never being satisfied with new games, but this reaction seemed fair at the time. Some people didn't like the chibi-style characters, others didn't want a one-to-one remake, and me? Well, I wasn't really thrilled about either. Just look at the concept art for this game. It's incredible, and to this day, no Pokemon game has matched the artistic vision of these images. It's highly likely this art was simply just that, and the game was never intended to look this way, but still, expectations were high, and the reveal left a sour taste for fans. We did get a band-aid though. If you didn't like what they showed during the reveal of BDSP, you surely liked what came right after, the reveal of Pokemon Legends Arceus. This gave fans at least a glimmer of hope, as we only had to wait 2 months after BDSP to enjoy the next evolution of the franchise. It's pretty obvious at this point these remakes were odd, and they didn't follow the conventions the series had up to this point. So, how did it all begin? Well, I couldn't find much in terms of development history for these titles, probably because it's still somewhat modern, but given the amount of backlash it got, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't learn much about it in the future. What I do know is that Junichi Masuda, who directed the original Diamond and Pearl, came back as co-director for the remakes, alongside Yuichi Ueda from ILCA. Instead of Game Freak, ILCA was tasked with making these games because the main team was busy working on Legends Arceus and getting Generation 9 ready. ILCA had already worked with Nintendo as they developed the Pokemon Home app for the Switch, which is funny because I remember after BDSP launched, it took months for compatibility with Home to go live. They also went on to make One Piece Odyssey and Sandland, two positively reviewed games that showed off pretty good looking visuals, so some people were confused as to why BDSP came out looking the way it did. I wasn't happy with the way the game looked initially, but after playing it for just a few hours, I realized I loved the way the world looked. I'm still not crazy about the chibi characters, but the overworld is beautiful, especially during certain times of day, like the evening. The battle backgrounds look really good, and I like that they finally got rid of the cell shading outlines on the Pokemon models. But I'm getting too ahead of myself. For this video, I'm starting a new playthrough of Brilliant Diamond, and I'm going to highlight my favorite things or things that bother me as we adventure through the Sinnoh region. Our adventure starts with humble beginnings like most Pokemon games. We create our character, name the rival, and set out on a grand adventure to become the best there ever was. We begin in Twinleaf Town, one of the more nostalgic towns for myself, as I spent countless hours as a kid starting new saves of Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum with my friends. These were originally the games where I started talking to every NPC because you'd get some good items, or sometimes they'd say really interesting or wholesome dialogue. I'll try to point these out the best I can, but it can be tricky because of how many there are. Anyway, I love the look of Sinnoh. I love that the region is heavily forested by pine trees and cabin houses. I know it's a colder region, but it gives off a vibe of vacation and relaxation, which is amplified by the soundtrack of the game. In BDSP specifically, I like that you can see the shadows of the clouds as you're walking around. Just another nice detail that shows that some effort was put in. Anyway, after meeting up with Barry, we head to the lake and get our very first Pokemon. I picked Turtwig because I think the final evolution looks the best out of the three, plus Grass Ground is an awesome typing. I like Piplup quite a bit too, and Chimchar is cool, but this was yet another fire fighting type, and nothing in my mind will ever top Blaziken. We then fend off a wild Starly, meet up with the professor and get the Pokedex, and get a parcel to deliver to Barry. Our adventure is fully underway, but first let's talk about Sandgem Town. It's a cozy beachside town with more camping vibes. It's also the first time in the series the Pokemon Lab wasn't in the player's starting town. The music in Twinleaf Town is quaint and happy, while in Sandgem it's a little bit more upbeat, but still has that somber undertone. I like to think that the music from Twinleaf to Sandgem is building up to the music in the bustling Jubilife City, which we'll get to next. After booking it through Route 202 and catching a Shinx along the way, we make it to Jubilife City. This is the first big city you encounter in the Sinnoh region, and there's quite a bit to do here. You receive the Pokétch here, which was awkwardly incorporated into the remakes. It worked and looked much better on the DS touchscreen, but I guess this was better than leaving it out entirely. You can also visit the trainer school and battle a few students, which gives you the TM for workup. You can get the Quick Claw from talking to an NPC in the Jubilife condominiums, which is perfect for Turtwig. And just outside of town, you can get the Old Rod if you really want to catch a Magikarp. This is also where the Global Wonder Station is located, which allows you to connect online and trade with players across the world. I remember not having Wi-Fi as a kid, but my neighbors had it, so if I sat my DS next to the window, I could trade online. I never got anything good, but it blew my mind as an 8-year-old that this was even possible. I was so used to link cables that this was really impressive. I kinda miss when the simple things seemed so big back then. Anyway, I love Jubilife City. This is where the adventure really starts to feel upbeat. The music is quite a bit more jolly but still feels quaint. I guess that's the genius of the soundtrack. Even when it's upbeat or adventurous, it still has that homey feel to it. Jubilife City represents a fresh start, a new beginning. Nothing beats the feeling of starting a fresh Pokemon save. Your Pokemon are still small and cute, the battles seem harmless and low stakes, and the possibilities of team building are endless. It's the same feeling you get when you move for the first time or start a new job. It's just refreshing. From here, we can explore around a few routes and have our first rival battle with Barry before heading to Oreburgh City, where the first gym leader resides. I should mention that the early game routes really don't have much going on in them, so I'm mainly talking about the towns, but there will be much more interesting routes ahead. Once we pass through Route 203 and get through Oreburgh Gate, which is just a small cave, we arrive at Oreburgh City, the City of Energy. Oreburgh City kinda has a rough and tumble look to it, and I'm not sure why, but the music here is very nostalgic for me. More so than previous towns. I don't have a specific memory involving this place, but maybe the music is just that good. Oreburgh is home to the museum, which allows you to restore fossil Pokemon a little later, and the Oreburgh Mines, which we're sent to in order to find the gym leader. Once we find Rourke, he shows us the capabilities of using Rock Smash, and we're able to challenge him at the gym. Rourke is a Rock-type gym leader. This is the third time in the series that this had been the case, with the only exception being Gold and Silver. Rock-type gym leaders are usually a breeze because 2 out of the 3 choices you pick for your starters are strong against them. Even here, if you did pick Chimchar, you'd get a fighting-type move by level 14, which could increase your odds at defeating him. But luckily, we have Turtwig, so this fight is a cakewalk. I will say, I absolutely love that they gave him a Cranidos as his ace Pokemon, given that he's a miner and the Fossil Restoration Center is in this town. It's the little things like that make these Pokemon games feel lived in at times. After a quick battle, we defeat Rourke, earn the Coal Badge and get to watch a cool animation of it going into our case, and gain the ability to use Rock Smash outside of battle. This remake did what every good remake should do, and got rid of the forced HM usage on your party's move slots. Instead, you summon a Bidoof from the heavens and it takes care of everything for you. I love this detail so much. They knew that everyone back in the day just caught Bidoof to use him as an HM user. Now that we have Rock Smash, there's little paths inside of caves that you can explore which are completely optional and oftentimes have rare Pokemon or valuable items. The Sinnoh region is chock full of hidden secrets and opportunities for exploration. I love the idea of open world Pokemon, but I also really miss this. It's too bad they have yet to figure out how to blend the two styles together, but maybe someday they will. Anyway, now we can head back to Jubilife and go north of town where rocks were previously blocking our path forward. Except there's a problem. Who else but the evil villains of the game are here to stop us in our tracks? I remember thinking these guys looked so cool as a kid, but now they just look kinda lame. Maybe it's because they look like penguins in chibi form, or because I'm seeing their full model in 3D now, but the bowl cuts with bangs really didn't age well. Team Galactic might be one of the worst teams, but I still like them. They're better than Team Flare and miles better than Team Yell. I mean, I don't even want to get started on Team Yell, that was a travesty. Anyway, the story with the evil villains is kind of weak, but we'll get into that more later. For now, we beat the grunts and head north to continue our journey. After we get through the Ravaged Path, we emerge on the upper level of Route 204. This route isn't anything spectacular, but I love the perspective you get from on top of the cliff. Anyway, after a few trainer battles, we make it to one of my favorite places in Sinnoh, Floroma Town. I don't like that in the remakes they removed the archway that leads into town. This is a major complaint of the game for many people, myself included. The fact that they could have easily given us platinum content but chose not to is such a weird choice. I know this is just a missing archway, but there's more that got left out, and I'll point out the big ones as we go. In town, there's a couple you can meet, and in the remakes, depending on what Pokemon games you've played, they will give you a Jirachi or a Mew. Not sure why they chose to do this, but it's really cool. Mew was locked behind the Pokeball Plus accessory for a while, and I believe Jirachi was not obtainable on the Switch up to this point. This was a surprise when I first played the remakes, and I was happy to get Jirachi. This was the first time I was able to legitimately get this Pokemon, and one of my favorite Pokemon movies as a kid was the Wishmaker movie. And yeah, I know most people don't like it, but I'm a Gen 3 kid at heart. Another reason I've always liked Floroma Town is that it introduces berries to the Sinnoh region. This is one of my favorite side activities in Pokemon, and it kills me that this was the last time the feature was implemented like this. I spent hours as a kid in Emerald grinding berries and stocking up on the best ones I could find. It basically became a mini-game for me, hunting down berry stalks so I could collect and farm them all. I was worried that the remakes would ditch this feature like they did with Secret Bases, but I'm happy to say that it's back in full, the way it should be. Also, remember how I said the characters sometimes say wholesome things? Well, in this town, if you talk to a woman standing in the field of flowers, she says, "I simply love it here. The atmosphere is so uplifting. You came to get emotionally healed too, didn't you?" I've always loved this line because Pokemon is a comfort game for me. Anytime I'm overly stressed or not feeling well, I can rely on these older games to make me feel at ease, and this line has always stuck with me. Floroma Town is the perfect place to just sit back and relax. I've always loved the way this town looks with the field of flowers, especially if you come here at night. The lighting on the flowers makes the colors really pop and come to life. After a relaxing visit in Floroma Town, we head out east to Route 205, where we encounter a girl who says her dad got kidnapped and we need to rescue him. We find a Team Galactic grunt hanging outside the Valley Windworks and defeat him in battle, but he locks himself inside. We have to track down the other grunts to find the key, but once we do, we get inside and battle Commander Mars. Team Galactic might not be my favorite, but I do like that the commanders are named after planets. Anyway, after a long and cheesy battle, where I had to spam withdraw so Turtwig didn't get two-shot by her Paragoli, which is a beast by the way, we defeat Mars and she agrees to leave the area, and we save the girl's dad. This is when he reveals to us that Team Galactic's goals are to create a new universe, and that's pretty much all the insight we get for their motivations. Next, we travel through Route 205 heading north. This is another fairly basic route, but you start to see how they were somewhat playing with branching paths. Not fully, but it's not just a straight line through, and you get to explore a little bit here and there before heading into Eterna Forest, which, yet again, is one of my favorite places in Pokemon. You all know the music here. It's the perfect song to represent the calmness and serenity you might find while wandering through a dense forest. It's here that we meet up with a Pokemon trainer named Cheryl, and she asks to travel through the forest with us until we reach Eterna City. This was another pretty big feature introduced in Diamond and Pearl. Traveling companions pop up quite a bit while exploring Sinnoh, and some are completely optional. This requires you to engage in double battles, which is really cool because even though they were introduced in Ruby and Sapphire, there was only a handful in those games. Anyway, Eterna Forest is a place I used to visit and just let the music play. The calmness of the music really takes you to another place. It's the same feeling you get when you boot up The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and hear that menu music again. Visually, the forest looks fantastic. The way the sun or the moonlight shines through the top of the trees as you explore is a really nice detail, and it makes it feel like it's more alive. I think that's part of the problem with modern Pokemon games. Something as simple as the lighting in a forest adds so much to a location, and it's the little details that are sorely missing for the most part in the newer games. As we reach the end of the forest, Cheryl thanks us and we part ways. Nearby, there's an old mansion tucked away and blocked by little trees which we can't access quite yet, but it's a haunted house essentially. This is where you can catch Rotom, which has taken over a TV to call home. Another reason I really like Sinnoh is locations like this. It gives the feeling that we're exploring a region that's been here for a very long time, and that's been well lived in. Which is cool because Legends Arceus shows us exactly what the region was like in the distant past. Anyway, after we spend some more time exploring the forest, we catch a Murkrow and head to Eterna City. Once we get to town, we meet Cynthia. She gives us Cut even though we can't use it quite yet. We all know her, but in case you don't, she's the champion of the Sinnoh League and notoriously hard to beat. But before I talk about Eterna City, we need to talk about the Grand Underground, which gets introduced to us by an old explorer. This feature allows us to dive deep underground and explore the depths of the Sinnoh region. I have a love-hate relationship with this feature in the remakes. On one hand, the new caverns they added that act as wild zones with overworld Pokemon is fantastic. It's probably the one thing they actually added to these games from the original, and it expands your capabilities for team building. And the habitats look really nice. The mining minigame is largely unchanged, and you can get some really good items from doing it, such as fossils and evolution stones. In the past, I've definitely been addicted to this side mode, spending hours looking for items. So, everything sounds good, right? What's not to love? Well, the secret bases in this game really aren't secret bases like how you want them. Instead of making a cool fort and decorating it like how you would in the originals, it's basically an empty room in which you place your statues that you collect from mining. Yeah, it's kinda lame, and I don't like this change at all. Secret bases will probably never come back, but this was our last chance to have it in full one last time, but it just didn't work out that way. Overall, I still think the Grand Underground is awesome, and it immediately feels like Sinnoh when you're down here. Back on the surface, we finally get to explore Eterna City. Remember how I said Sinnoh feels old and lived in? Well, this town is a prime example of it. From the ancient statue depicting a hybrid of Dialga and Palkia, to the slow and downbeat music, which by the way, is actually a remix of the music for Agate Village in Pokemon Coliseum, which I think is cool because Game Freak seemingly likes to ignore the GameCube titles. After wandering around a bit and catching a Meditite on Route 211, we head into the gym and battle Gardenia. She uses Grass-type Pokemon, which wasn't much of an issue since I trained up Murkrow quite a bit, but once she got to Roserade, she knocked out 2 of my Pokemon, leaving Grotle to finish the job. I gotta say, if I didn't choose Turtwig, then Roserade would have definitely made it on the team. I think Grass-type Pokemon are my favorite overall, plus the design is top-notch. I don't actually love a lot of the Sinnoh Pokemon designs, but Roserade is a shining exception. Anyway, with the second gym badge in our possession, we can now use Cut outside of battle and investigate the Team Galactic Building north of the Pokemon Center. In Diamond and Pearl and thus the remakes, this place looks like a typical office building with spikes on the side. I don't know why I think it's funny, but I do. Once again, this area looks way cooler aesthetically in Platinum, and I don't know why they couldn't have kept this look for the remakes. Either way, after battling through a few floors, we get to the top level and encounter Commander Jupiter, who yet again has a beast for an ace Pokemon. Skuntank always gave me trouble as a kid. It has a varied move pool and is extremely tanky. Thankfully, we got lucky and paralyzed it and made pretty quick work of it here. After we defeat Jupiter, she gives us back the stolen Pokemon and we can head to the cycle shop in town where the owner wants to thank us. He gives us a bike as gratitude and even lets us pick the color. Much like the HMs in Sinnoh, the bike now opens up new avenues for exploration and introduces us to a few shortcuts around the region. South of Eterna City, we head down Route 206, which is the cycling route in the game. I've always loved the way this looks, because you can see the sprawling route down below. Even in the originals, the perspective looked amazing. After battling quite a few trainers and getting off the cycling path, we meet up with Dawn, and she gives us 2 items. The dowsing machine for our Poketch, which is really awkward to use on the Switch, and the Versus Seeker, which lets you rematch trainers you defeated previously. The underside of Route 206 is where things get interesting. It has some good items and a few trainer battles, but it holds a secret that I hadn't discovered until years after the originals released. Seriously, I was probably playing Sun and Moon before I found out there's a hidden cave tucked away underneath the bridge. I mean, how are you supposed to find this as a kid? I love this so much. The fact that Sinnoh has entire areas that are not only optional, but straight up hidden. It really adds to the replay value of the game and makes me love it even more. The best part is, that isn't even the only area like this in Sinnoh, but we'll discuss those areas as they come up. Granted, we can't do much with this secret cave until we get strength, but it's something to remember to come back for. The crazy thing, this route has an entire optional dungeon where you can go on a side quest to save a girl who got lost in a cave. This is much easier to do with Flash, which I haven't grabbed up to this point, so I'm going to go back to the Oreburgh Gate and explore yet another optional place to find it. After using Flash, we explore the cave and finally find Mira and escort her out to safety. You don't get anything for it, but it's a nice side quest. Sinnoh is packed with stuff to do, and we haven't even seen all the side modes and activities yet. Anyway, I could go on and on about how the region itself feels more like a main character, but it's time to move on. Next, we head east on Route 207 and enter one of the many caves that make up Mount Coronet. I haven't talked about this yet, but Sinnoh is split in half by a giant mountain range, and at many points in the game, you'll travel through it to get from one side to the other. I like that these top-down games don't feel flat, even with the limitations they had when making the older regions. It shows that with enough passion and creativity, amazing games could be made, regardless of hardware power. Anyway, halfway through the cave, we run into Cyrus, the leader of Team Galactic. He mentions that the human spirit is weak and the world is being ruined by it, and then just kinda leaves. On the other side of the cave, we reach Route 208. I don't have much to say about it, but I do like the way it looks. You have to cross a few bridges over water before heading off the mountain and reaching Hearthome City. There's a ton of stuff to do here. First, we visit the church, which is a rare sight in Pokemon as they never really touch on religion, but given that Generation 4 introduced us to Arceus, which is the god of this universe, it makes sense. Inside is one of the very rare times in BDSP we get a perspective change, and the mural on the wall looks really nice here. There isn't much to do, but I figured I'd point it out. Next, there's Amity Square. This is basically a Pokemon park where you can walk around with your Pokemon outside of its Pokeball. In the original, the options were pretty limited and you could only do it inside the park, whereas the remakes let you walk around for the rest of your adventure with any Pokemon you choose. This is a cool idea, and most people love the walking Pokemon. However, it really isn't pulled off in the remakes that great. A lot of the models either look awkward or walk too slow or get hung up on edges. Because of this, I don't really use the feature, but it would have been nice if it was implemented better. Pokemon contests are also reintroduced here after not being implemented in the series since the Gen 3 remakes. I never really got into the contests, but I'm glad they exist. I remember liking the side arcs of the anime where Mei was trying to be a contest star. In BDSP, they changed the contest to be more like a Guitar Hero style rhythm game, but you only have to hit the A button when prompted, so it's not that deep of a system by any means. I've had some fun with this in the remakes, but it's more of a side gimmick. Even though it's not my favorite activity, I'm still glad it's here. To coincide with the contests, you can also make poffins, which you do by putting berries you've harvested into a pot and completing a minigame to make sweet treats for your Pokemon. This not only gives you yet another reason to berry farm, which is always a positive, but it adds a layer of complexity to the contests, as you can use the poffins to maximize your Pokemon's ability to perform well. Hearthome City has a nice vibe to it, and the music is playful and cute, which basically describes the whole town. There's a gym here, but we're not ready to challenge it yet, as Fantina tells us we need to get much stronger before we come back. Before we can continue the adventure, we're stopped by Barry for another rival fight, and we make quick work of him. I actually like Barry quite a bit as a rival. He's not very difficult to beat, but he's got a fun personality. I know a lot of people want the mean rivals to come back, and maybe I do too, but Barry is a good in-between. He's impatient and competitive, but he's still a good guy. After leaving Hearthome, we venture through Route 209 and find the Lost Tower. I've always loved the haunted locations in Pokemon games. My favorite holiday is Halloween, and seeing these locations always gets me in that fall mood. After a few floors of battling trainers and grief, we reach the top and get the Strength TM, which we can't use yet. Afterwards, we reach Solaceon Town, a small ranch town with nothing much going on. However, the Pokemon breeder is here, which is nice. You might be noticing something. It's been a long time since we've had a gym battle, and we still have another long route ahead before the next town. This section of the game has always gotten flack for being poorly paced and slow, and I too hated this segment as a kid, but I don't know. I think I've gotten more patient because now I don't mind it. I kinda like that Sinnoh has this laid back, slow down and smell the air kind of vibe to it. To me, this section is kinda relaxing. I'm not making excuses and I understand the criticism here, but I think it's growing on me. After leaving Solaceon Town, we head through Route 10 and Route 15. Route 10 is tiny, but there's a little cafe where you can buy Moo Moo milk. Route 15 is a rainy route with lots of berries and items along the way. I've always liked this route because I like rainy locations and games, and I like its winding layout. Soon after, we reach Veilstone City. Here they have the department store, which is basically a Pokemart on steroids, the Galactic Veilstone Building, which is the headquarters for Team Galactic, and the Style Shop, where you can customize your trainer. This used to be the game corner in the old games, but because of certain laws they had to change it, which I understand. Other than that, we finally get to challenge the third gym leader, Maylene, and I lost the first 2 attempts. I think I let her set up Lucario a little too long, but just in case, I level grinded for a while and evolved Grotle into Torterra. It turns out Lucario isn't too resilient against Earthquake. So after we finally beat her, we gain the ability to use Fly outside a battle. Upon leaving the gym, Dawn stops us and tells us that Team Galactic stole her Pokédex and we need to help her get it back. Once we defeat the Team Galactic grunts and get the Pokédex back, we were able to go into the Team Galactic storage room and get the Fly HM. And with that, there's not much else to do in town, so it's time to head south towards Pastoria City. I don't have much to say about Route 214, but the music is fantastic. It almost feels out of place with how upbeat it is, but I like the vibe it has. It's kinda cool that you can pick a mountainous path or a path through some fences, but either way, there's quite a few trainer battles. Next, we reach Valor Lakefront. We can't actually explore the lake yet, but there's a small beachside town here that I always thought was a cool addition. It seems like they tried to always give you something to do between the big towns, which I feel like is a very underrated part of Sinnoh. I mean, the region is huge, and it really feels like it when you're playing. Anyway, in this little town resides Masuda, the game director. They normally do this in all the games, and you can come back and get a certificate when you complete the Pokédex, which sadly, I've never done in Sinnoh, but maybe one day. After passing through Lake Valor, we hit Route 213. This is a nice little beach route where we caught a Shellos for the team. This route doesn't last too long before reaching Pastoria City. I want to like Pastoria City, but I don't really like the swampy vibe of the town, but yet again I kinda do. I guess I don't really know how to feel about it. I do think it's kinda cool that there's no streets here, but there's walking paths that have been worn into the grass. Trees litter the entire town in almost random locations, so it's a town that's basically been carved into a field of trees. I like this concept, but it doesn't compare to Four Tree City in Hoenn, which pulled this idea off much better. Maybe what rubs me wrong is the music. I don't hate it, but it seems kinda slow and depressing. A lot of the soundtrack in this game is slow, but it sounds homey and comforting, whereas this just seems discouraging. Either way, this town offers the Great Marsh, which is this game's version of the Safari Zone. I've never really cared for these areas in Pokemon, but I know they're fan favorites for some. Just like the contests, I'm glad they're here, even if I don't partake very often. We also have the 4th gym leader in Pastoria. I haven't mentioned the gym puzzles in this game yet, because in Sinnoh, especially the remakes in the original Diamond and Pearl, the puzzles are kinda lackluster. The first gym wasn't a puzzle at all. The second was much cooler in Platinum, but here it's just hide and seek with trainers you can easily spot, and the third gym puzzle is more annoying than anything. I bring this up because I absolutely love Crasher Wake's gym puzzle. It's really fun and intuitive to raise and lower the water levels to access new areas in the gym and eventually reach Wake. I wanted to highlight how good this gym puzzle is because this is how it's done, and it's important for something we'll talk about later. Anyway, it's time to battle Crasher Wake. Being a water-type gym leader, you'd think I'd be fine with Torterra, and you'd normally be right, but his first Pokemon is a Gyarados, and this always gave me trouble as a kid. It's why I picked up Shinx in the first place, and I almost always put an electric Pokemon on my team with this battle in mind. His ace Pokemon is Floatzel, which never really gave me much trouble, but it's really tanky, so I could see it being a tough fight. Thankfully, with the help of Luxray, this battle isn't too bad, and we got our 4th gym badge. After leaving the gym, you can talk to the shady Galactic Grunt in town. He starts to panic as we overhear him talk about delivering a bomb to the lake, and he tries to flee. While we were giving chase, we were stopped by Barry, and once again, defeat him pretty easily. Afterwards, we continue to chase the Grunt until we finally reach Lake Valor, where he tries to defeat us in battle, but of course, we win. Afterwards, he runs off telling us he must give the item to the commander, and that's about it with Team Galactic for now. We then run into Cynthia, who alludes to the Lake Guardians and gives us the secret medicine, which we'll need to use later. Now it's time to head back to Hearthome City to battle our 5th gym, and there's 2 ways we can go about this. 1, we could just fly back, which I always did as a kid, or 2, we could pass through Route 212, which I never saw until I was an adult. Not because it's some well-guarded secret, but because why wouldn't you just use fly? I mentioned earlier that Sinnoh is a very slow down and smell the air type of region, so we're going to take the scenic route. Route 212 is huge, and I suspect that this one isn't a fan favorite. Sinnoh already gets flack for its bad pacing, and this route is covered in bogs, which you constantly get stuck in, slowing you down even more. Is it my favorite route? No, absolutely not, but like I've mentioned, I'm a sucker for optional content. You can finish the game without ever having to visit this place, which I appreciate. And to give it credit, as annoying as the bogs can be, at least it's not required, unlike a really slow route we'll cover later. The Pokemon Mansion is also here, where you can access the Trophy Garden, which lets you encounter a different rare Pokemon daily. This is a really cool idea, and I wish something like this would come back at some point. After a lot of trainer battles, we reach the south side of Hearthome City and can finally face Fantina. Except, that's not actually true. When I was making this video, I was sure that we could battle Fantina now, but apparently, we have to go help the sickly Psyduck on Route 210 first. After we clear the Psyduck, Cynthia asks us to deliver an old charm to her grandmother in Celestic Town. This whole part of the game has such a confusing story, where we're just doing random things that are trying too hard to tie the whole storyline together. Anyway, the route to Celestic Town is the rest of Route 210, and it's much easier to get through when you use Defog. As a kid, I remember not knowing about Defog being in the Great Marsh and just trekking through one grid movement at a time. It's actually a pretty fun route to travel through when you can actually see everything. After a while, we reach Celestic Town, one of the oldest towns in the Sinnoh region. Like I've said before, I love the towns that seem ancient or historic. Celestic Town is a prime example of this. The same music from Eterna City is played here, which I like because it connects the two towns together in a way. They both represent the past, and the visuals for both support this. Once we get to the center of town, we confront a galactic grunt who is threatening to blow the entire town up. The grunt is defeated easily, and we're approached by the town elder, who turns out to be Cynthia's grandmother. We give her the old charm, and she tells us about how the charms were created to represent the Pokemon who created the Sinnoh region, and suggests we explore the ruins in town. Inside, we learn more about the Lake Guardians, and the elder gives us the Surf HM. So, it's time to actually head to Hearthome this time. Upon leaving the ruins, we run into Cyrus again, and he goes on some more about how he wants to create a new universe and then leaves once again. With all that done, it's time to head to Hearthome and take on our 5th gym leader. Remember how I was gushing about how good the Pastoria gym puzzle was? I'm not kidding when I tell you this, but Fantina, the ghost-type gym leader, has us solving simple math problems. This is by far the worst gym in the franchise, and it could have been cool because I love ghost-type Pokemon. Actually, it was already cool. In Pokemon Platinum, the gym puzzle had you walking around with a flashlight in a maze trying to make it through to the end, but because this is BDSP, they just had to leave it alone, I guess. Anyway, after getting to Fantina, I actually liked the battle because, like I said, I'm a fan of ghost-type Pokemon. One thing I don't like about BDSP is that if your Pokemon's happiness is high enough, they'll start to dodge attacks automatically, which isn't a bad idea necessarily, but this is Pokemon. It's not hard enough for me to ever need that, and there's no option to turn this off. By the end of the game, even the hardest battles start to feel like a breeze because of this feature. Either way, we beat Fantina, get our 5th gym badge, and gain the ability to use Surf outside of battle. Upon leaving the gym, we meet Cynthia once again and get told to go to the Canalave Library, which, coincidentally, is the same town where we'll find the 6th gym leader. We'll get there soon, but first, there's some cool stuff we can do with Surf. Before we head to Canalave, I want to show you another secret area in Sinnoh that I didn't know about until I was an adult. Just east of Floroma Town, you can use Surf on the river and head up the stream to find Fuego Ironworks. This is yet another optional dungeon where you can get Firestones if you really want them, and the Flamethrower TM. There's really not too much to say about it, but again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, places like this in Sinnoh just make me happy. And it won't be long until we get to explore another one. Next, we'll head back to Jubilife City, and we get to head west this time. Route 218 is extremely short, but I love the effects on the water as we're surfing through the sea. Once we reach Canalave, the music hits and it feels so nostalgic. The music sounds like the end of a heart-wrenching movie, but it still gives off a vibe of hope and courage. I love this song, and it encompasses the Port Town vibe as well. This town is split up by 2 separate sides with a bridge connecting them. I've always liked Canalave, and there's a few things to do here, but first we meet Barry on the bridge for yet another rival battle. His team has gotten stronger, but still, we didn't have much trouble beating him. Now that we've gotten that done, we can talk to a sailor in the port and he'll take us to Iron Island. This is yet another optional place, and even though I would say it's pretty hidden, it's on the map, so this location is much more well known. Here you can go through a large dungeon with a trainer companion named Riley, and at the end he gives you a Pokemon egg that contains a Riolu. His design seems to be pretty heavily inspired from Sir Aaron from the Lucario movie, and with the egg he gives you, it's pretty on the nose. Once we're done on the island, it's time to head back to town and challenge the gym. Thankfully, the gym puzzle for Byron is just as good as Crasher Wakes. I remember this blew my mind as a kid, seeing what the DS could do with verticality in a Pokemon game. After battling the gym trainers, we face Byron, who actually happens to be Rourke's dad, which I like a lot. His ace Pokemon is a Bastiodon, which is a cool detail because it's one of the Sinnoh fossil Pokemon, and his son uses the other. It's cool to think that maybe they were exploring the underground together and each got a fossil and raised him up. Anyway, Byron's not too tough of a fight if you have a team like mine, but I've always liked this gym. After beating him and gaining the ability to use strength outside of battle, we leave the gym and Barry tells us to head to the library with him. There, we meet Dawn and the professor, who assigns the 3 of us to investigate 1 lake each in the Sinnoh region. It's at this moment the screen starts to shake and it's clear that something major has taken place. Upon leaving the library, a sailor approaches us and tells us that a huge explosion has gone off at Lake Valor, which of course is the lake that we were assigned to investigate. As we approach the lake, it's clear that it's worse than anyone could have imagined. Team Galactic has completely blown up the lake. Something I've always thought was funny is the first grunt you talk to calls Twinleaf a hick town, which isn't wrong, but just surprising to see in a Pokemon game. After a few grunt battles, we get to battle Commander Saturn for the first time, which wasn't too tough of a fight, unlike the first two commanders. After defeating Saturn, he tells us that they want to steal the Lake Trio to harness their power to create a new universe, and then he scurries off. Now that that's settled, we can head to our hometown lake and help Dawn defeat Commander Mars. She was still tougher to beat than Saturn, but really gave us no trouble. After the battle, she reveals that the 3 Lake Guardians were successfully captured and are being held in the Galactic headquarters. After Team Galactic leaves, Professor Rowan asks us to check on Barry at Lake Acuity, which is way in the north of the Sinnoh region. To get to Lake Acuity, we have to pass through Mount Coronet heading north. You can take this route by heading east from Eterna or heading west through Celestic Town, which is what we're doing. We weren't able to access this point of the mountain until now thanks to our ability to use strength. The path through Mount Coronet itself is pretty short, but it still offers a little bit of exploration if you want to use surf around the underground streams. Once we come out on the other side, we find ourselves on Route 216. I absolutely hated this route as a kid. For some reason, I hated snowy areas in video games, although now I love them. The route has deep snow, which slows the trainer down to a snail's pace at times. However, just like most things I hated as a kid, I've grown to appreciate this route a lot. I like the way it looks in the remakes quite a bit, and even though this route is huge, I like being able to just stroll around in the snow. The battle backgrounds on this route are beautiful as well. We soon hit Route 217, which is right by Lake Acuity but is more of the same. As we approach the Acuity lakefront, 2 grunts are guarding the lake and won't let us pass through just yet, so it's time to head to Snowpoint City. Snowpoint City is one of my favorite towns in Pokemon. I have fond memories of setting up blanket forts under a Christmas tree at a friend's house and playing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl all night. This town always reminds me of those times, back when life was a little simpler. The music here is odd, but I love it. It starts off slow and almost creepy, but before you know it, it kicks into an upbeat, funky type song like Sinnoh does best. Also, something I don't understand is that in the remakes, they added snow to the roofs of the Pokemon and the Pokemon Center, which looks fantastic, but if they can make these little visual updates for this place, why couldn't they have done that for the rest of the game? It's just one of those confusing things with BDSP that makes me wish they would have added little details like this elsewhere. Either way, they also have a temple here that holds Regigigas. I've always loved this because one of my favorite things in this series is the Regi hunt you have to go on in Gen 3. While Snowpoint Temple isn't nearly as cryptic or exciting, you still have to come back here with the 3 Regis to gain entry into the temple. It just seemed like a nice finale to the whole thing. I mean, at this point you would have had to have transferred all the Regis into Diamond and Pearl just to get Regigigas. In the remakes, you can catch them natively, so it's not as cool, but it's still nice to see when Pokemon was able to give these legendaries their own locations or quests. Anyway, it's time to battle Candace, the 7th gym leader, and I can't stand the gym puzzle, at least not in BDSP. In the originals, when it was strictly based on grid movement, I would have said the puzzle was at least decent, but it's so janky in the remakes for no reason. I haven't had a chance to mention this yet, but in BDSP, the movement is pretty bad. You're constantly getting hung up on random edges or caught on corners. It's a minor inconvenience, but it's annoying and shouldn't have been a problem in the first place. This gym puzzle really puts these issues in the spotlight, as it's so clunky and awkward just to move around the place. At any rate, we finally reach Candace and get to have our battle. We get through her team fairly easily, and her ace Pokemon is Abomasnow. I've always loved its typing and design. Someday I'd like to be able to fit it on a team of mine. After we defeat her, we get the 7th gym badge and gain the ability to use Rock Climb outside of battle. Next, it's time to finally check up on Barry and see how he's doing at Lake Acuity. It turns out we were a little too late, as Barry lost his fight to Commander Jupiter and tells us she's heading back to their headquarters in Veilstone. So, with that being done, it's time to finally head to the HQ and hopefully take down Team Galactic once and for all. Once we get to town, we have to find the keycard, which is held by the guard in the front of their main building. We talk to the grunt and he gives us a sob story and then drops the key. The Team Galactic base is similar to what you're used to in terms of dungeons for the evil teams in these older games. There's lots of battles and dead ends, but I've always enjoyed these. They make Pokemon feel like Final Fantasy or something, with us finally getting a major dungeon that takes more than a few minutes to get through. This dungeon utilizes warp puzzles, which used to really confuse me as a kid. Back then, strategy guides are the only reason I was able to get through some of these places, but nowadays, this place isn't too bad. It just takes a lot of trial and error. Eventually, we find the Galactic key, which unlocks all the doors in the dungeon, and head back to the main building, which is more of the same. Once we explore the base a little further, we confront Cyrus, and he finally gives us some insight as to what his goals and motivations are. He talks about how human emotion is an illusion and that the human spirit is weak, so that somehow equates to him wanting to create a new universe. The idea behind the legendaries in Sinnoh is amazing. One created the universe, one controls time, and one controls space. I love the idea of the villains trying to reset and start a new universe, but this is the motivation behind it? Because human emotions are an illusion? After we defeat him, he then proceeds to give us the Master Ball, which is another really weird thing for him to do. This is why I don't really care for Team Galactic's story. It's just so nonsensical. But at the end of the day, this is a game for kids, which hasn't stopped us from getting some seriously good stories in the main games and even in the spin-offs. But in the closing section of this video, I'll talk more about why the lackluster story doesn't really bother me. For now though, we'll head into the next room and save the 3 Lake Guardians. In our way is Commander Saturn to try to stop us once and for all, but just like last time, poses very little challenge. After setting the Pokemon free, Saturn tells us that he used them to make a chain to shackle something to the top of Mount Coronet. So we're not quite done with Team Galactic yet, as we now have to head to the mountain to stop Cyrus once and for all. This section of the game is a sprawling dungeon that takes place through the winding paths of Mount Coronet. You have to weave in and out of caves, but if you're seeing Galactic grunts along the way, you know you're going in the right direction. I really like this segment of the game. It's just fun to explore Mount Coronet finally, after having all but 1 HM. After a while, we make it to the Spear Pillar. This location to many is the magnum opus of the Sinnoh region. If you played the originals back in the day, you probably never forgot the first time you came across this place. It looks epic and unique to anything we've seen in the series up to this point. Once we get close enough to Cyrus, he summons Dialga and a fantastic cutscene takes place, showing how all of Sinnoh is being affected. Before we can take down Cyrus, we're stopped by Jupiter and Mars and team up with Barry to defeat them in an ultimate double battle. Afterwards, we take down Cyrus, and Dawn and Rowan show up and encourage us to calm Dialga. Now, normally I would battle the Legendary and catch them with anything other than the Master Ball, but for the sake of this video, I use the Master Ball. Another thing I never do is use the Legendary Pokemon on my team, but since I had a hard time thinking of a 6th member, I think we're just gonna roll with Dialga for the rest of the adventure. I really like this part of the game. Dialga and Palkia are really cool, and I love the fact that the Lake Trio comes back and breaks the red chain to save them from being at the mercy of Cyrus's will. Everything culminates to a nice finish, which felt good since throughout most of the game, the story seemed to be a mess. But with Team Galactic finally defeated for good and our new friend Dialga by our side, it's finally time to go to Sunyshore and battle our 8th and last gym leader. To get to Sunyshore City, we have to head east from Lake Valor and hit Route 222. There's not much to say about this route, but I've always liked the look and feel of it. After defeating Team Galactic and stopping a world-ending plot, this route has always felt like a palate cleanser to me. It's like the feeling you get when the sun starts shining after a week of rain. After reaching Sunyshore, we're stopped by a guy named Flynn. He tells us that the gym leader of the city is depressed because he hasn't had a challenger that's been worth his time, so it's our job to show him a battle to reignite his spirits. First, I want to talk about the city. The music is one of my favorite tracks in this game. It's very upbeat and futuristic, which reflects the city itself. This is the only city in Sinnoh that feels futuristic, except maybe Jubilife. I would describe Pokemon as a series to be solar punk, which is basically when a futuristic society meshes perfectly with clean energy and nature. I love Sinnoh's old-timey vibe, but it's nice to see a town like this where it goes back to this aesthetic. Anyway, we can find the gym leader in the Sunyshore Lighthouse. After talking to him, he says that this is his last battle he's willing to do, and if he wins, he's gonna take on the league himself. The Sunyshore gym puzzle is fantastic. It's in the same league as Wake's and Byron's gym. It involves hitting switches that rotate platforms, and it's very thematic, given the gym is based on electric-type Pokemon. Once we reach Volkner, we beat him pretty easily, which reignites his passion for being a gym leader. With that done, we gain the ability to use Waterfall outside of battle, which is required to get to the Pokemon League, and we get our final gym badge in the Sinnoh region. There's only one thing left to do now. It's time to head to Victory Road and try to beat the champion. To get to Victory Road, we have to cross Route 223, which is the first and only required surfing route in Sinnoh. Personally, as a big fan of Gen 3, I wouldn't have minded if we had a few more of these, but that's neither here nor there. After a short while, we use Waterfall to reach the Pokemon League and start our journey through Victory Road. This, like many Pokemon games, is the ultimate final dungeon, and as you'd expect, it takes a while to get through. Just like the Galactic HQ, I used to need a strategy guide to not get lost as a kid, but it's not so bad now. There's a lot of tough trainers here, which is good because you need as much experience points as you can get before having to face the Elite Four and the Champion of Sinnoh. Once we exit Victory Road, we use Waterfall and see the outside of the Pokemon League. In Sinnoh, the design of the Pokemon League has always been interesting to me. It has a very cathedral-style look to it, which harkens back to the lore that Arceus is the god of the universe. I just love the way the entire area looks, but we won't stay outside long, as before us lies the ultimate challenge. If you don't already know, the Elite Four is basically a gauntlet where you have to face 4 very tough trainers in a row with no Pokemon centers in between. Then, if you manage to beat all 4, you face the champion of the league, which in this case happens to be Cynthia, who is notoriously hard to beat, especially in the originals, but I've even had trouble with her in the remakes. Before we can face the Elite Four, Barry stops us one last time for our final battle with him. His team is fully grown up now, just like ours. Without too much trouble, we beat Barry and head into the first members room of the Elite Four and battle Aaron, the Bug-type trainer. He was tougher than I anticipated, which makes me slightly nervous, but we defeated him, which means we can go to the next room and battle Bertha, the Ground-type trainer. Again, we have good Pokemon to go up against her ground types, but she too proved to be really challenging, but we managed to pull through. Next up is Flint, who we met in Sunyshore. He specializes in Fire-type Pokemon. He offered up a challenge, but we beat him, so it's on to the last member of the Elite Four. Lucian uses Psychic-type Pokemon, so we should be able to beat them easily, but given how it's been going so far, I'm starting to get nervous about Cynthia. We did manage to defeat Lucian, but it was tough. Now, only Cynthia is waiting. I failed my first fight against Cynthia, and just barely scraped by with Torterra on my second attempt. Man, even in the remake, Cynthia and her team are extremely tough. I was actually starting to worry that I would have to leave and level grind, but thankfully, we pulled through. We now enter the Hall of Fame and become the champion of the Sinnoh region. And with that, our adventure is over. There's a lot of things about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl to dislike. They aren't impressive remakes like the series had had in the past, but recently something dawned on me. I've talked so much in this video about how much fun it is to explore every nook and cranny in the Sinnoh region, and it made it even more obvious that this style of Pokemon game has been sorely missing as of late. This is the only game we ever got on the Switch generation that even remotely resembles classic Pokemon, and for that reason, I've grown to love it. If you look at Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they took many liberties when remaking the originals, which is fine because I truly love both, but I guess that's the point. I still love the original Ruby and Sapphire, and I love the remakes, and I often replay both types of adventures. Whereas with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I feel like I don't really need to play the originals. As bad as this idea seemed when the game initially launched, I've grown to appreciate the fact that it is so faithful. Sure, this game would have been much better both story-wise and gameplay-wise if they added more of the Platinum editions. But now, if I'm ever in the mood to play through Sinnoh, and believe me, I tend to be in that mood often, I know that I can just pick up my Switch and enjoy these remakes for what they are. I didn't cover everything in this video. There's an entire post-game island that has its own routes and towns you can travel through, which I love. But I feel like I've said everything I've wanted to about Sinnoh as a region. Whether you're playing the remakes or the originals, these games will always have a special place in my heart. It's the closest this series has come to a life sim. Berry farming, secret bases, daily activities, and tons of exploration. I love this region, and I hope that if you made it this far into the video, you'll love it a little more too. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.